This is Job Search Reality. Todd Brooks from Athens, GA, sharing the truth about the ups and downs of trying to find your place. The interviews, the waiting game, the hopes and doubts we all face, but I keep moving forward every day here in Athens, GA. Just waiting on that call to come through. Feels like I'm hovering in the Athens blue. All these interviews and empty spaces, looking for foundation, not just traces. I'm ready to build my nest and settle down, find my own place to land in this classic city town.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Job Search Reality Series podcast for Sunday, July the 26th. I'm your host, Todd Brooks, and I want to thank you for spending part of your day with me. Whether you're driving to work, taking a walk, sitting in your office, or maybe you're looking for work just like I am, I'm glad that you're here. This podcast is all about navigating today's rapidly changing world of careers, hiring, technology, artificial intelligence, and the realities of today's job market. But this isn't just another AI podcast, and it isn't just another career podcast. This show exists because I wanted to document something real. I'm living through one of the most challenging job markets I've ever experienced. Every week, I continue applying, interviewing, learning new skills, and trying to understand how the workplace is changing. Instead of keeping these experiences to myself, I decided to bring you along for the journey. Every week, we'll talk about what's happening in the job market. We'll discuss artificial intelligence. We'll look at workplace trends. We'll celebrate successes. We'll learn from disappointments. And hopefully, we'll all become a little better prepared for whatever comes next. So this week, artificial intelligence seemed to be everywhere. No matter which news app I opened, no matter which technology website I visited, the headlines all seem to ask some version of the same question. Is AI becoming too powerful? AI has dominated this week's headlines. And one article talked about researchers discovering unexpected behavior during AI safety testing. Now, we did cover this a little bit on the last podcast, but I want to retouch on it because there's more to it now. Another news article described the enormous effort AI companies are making to build safeguards into increasingly capable systems. Yet another focused on students relying on AI instead of learning the material themselves. If you only read the headlines, you might walk away believing we're on the verge of some science fiction movie where computers suddenly become self-aware. Personally, I don't think that's what's happening, not yet anyway. I think something far more interesting is happening. Artificial intelligence is becoming incredibly capable. And as it becomes more capable, we're discovering that building AI responsibly may be just as difficult as building AI itself. And that's what today's episode is really about. Not fear, not hype, not predictions of the end of humanity. It's about understanding where this technology is today, where it's likely headed, and what all that means for your career. Because whether you're an accountant, a teacher, a truck driver, a nurse, a customer service representative, a construction worker, a manager, or someone looking for your next opportunity, AI is going to affect your profession in one way or another. The question isn't whether AI is coming. The question is, are we ready? So this is why I wanted to do this particular episode. I've always been very fascinated by technology ever since I was a kid. And then when I finally got my first computer when I was a teenager, I was mesmerized. I remember when the internet started becoming mainstream. People said it would never replace newspapers. Then online news exploded. People said online shopping would never replace retail stores. Now millions of people buy everything from groceries to cars online. People said smartphones were unnecessary. Today, Most of us carry around a computer in our pocket that's more powerful than the computers NASA used during the Apollo missions. Every generation experiences a technological revolution. Steam engines, electricity, automobiles, airplanes, television, the personal computer, the internet, smartphones, and now artificial intelligence. History tells us something interesting. When revolutionary technology first appears, people usually fall into one of two groups. One group believes the technology will solve every problem. The other believes it will destroy civilization. History usually proves that both groups are wrong. Technology doesn't determine the future by itself. People do. The choices we make, the safeguards we build, the laws we create, the ethics we follow, those determine whether technology improves our lives. That's why I wanted today's discussion to be balanced. I'm excited about AI. I use AI. I think it's one of the most useful tools I've ever had available. But I also believe every powerful technology deserves serious discussions. This isn't about machines. It's about people. One thing I've noticed over the last several months is that many conversations about AI focus almost entirely on the technology itself. How fast is it? How smart is it? What can it do? Those are fascinating questions, but I think they're missing something. The real story isn't the machine. The real story is us. How are businesses adapting? How are schools responding? How are governments responding? How are workers preparing? How are employers changing? How should we use these tools responsibly? Those questions matter just as much as the technology itself, because AI doesn't exist in a vacuum. Every decision made by an AI started with a decision made by a person. Someone designed it, someone trained it, someone deployed it, someone decided how it should be used. And that's why I don't believe AI is replacing human responsibility. If anything, it's making human responsibility even more important. Let's look at today's roundup. Here's what we're going to cover today. First, we're going to talk about why AI researchers intentionally tried to make AI systems fail. That might sound strange, but it's actually one of the smartest things they can do. Then, we'll discuss one of the biggest questions facing the entire AI industry today. Can companies continue building safeguards as these systems become more capable? After that, we'll shift gears and look at education. We'll talk about the professor who caught dozens of students relying on AI during an exam and what that says about the future of learning. Finally, we'll bring everything back to your career because at the end of the day, that's what this podcast is all about. Helping real people prepare for a workplace that's changing faster than ever before. When we come back, we're going behind the scenes of artificial intelligence. Why are the world's smartest researchers trying to break the very systems they're building? The answer may surprise you. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Job Search Reality Series podcast. Before the break, I asked a question that I think is becoming more important every single day. Are we ready for artificial intelligence? Now notice, I didn't ask whether AI is ready for us because in many ways, it already is. Artificial intelligence has become remarkably good at writing, coding, translating languages, analyzing data, creating images, editing videos, and helping people solve problems. It's moving at a pace that few experts predicted just a few years ago. But here's what many people don't realize. The companies building these systems aren't just trying to make them smarter. They're spending just as much time and billions of dollars trying to make sure they're safe. And that's where today's first story begins. So why would you try to break your own AI? That might sound like a strange question. Imagine you're the CEO of an AI company. You've invested years of research. You've hired some of the smartest engineers in the world. You've spent billions of dollars developing the most advanced artificial intelligence you've ever created. Why would your next stop be trying to make it fail? The answer is actually very simple. Because it's much better for you to discover a weakness than for someone else to discover it after your product is released. Think about automobile manufacturers. Before a new car even reaches a dealership, it goes through crash tests, not because engineers expect every car to crash, but because they want to know exactly what happens if one does. Airplane manufacturers do the same thing. They push aircraft to their limits. Banks run financial stress tests. Cybersecurity companies hire ethical hackers to attack their own networks. They aren't hoping these attacks succeed. They're looking for weaknesses before criminals find them. The AI industry has adopted that same philosophy. Instead of simply asking, can this AI solve difficult problems? Researchers are asking something much more important. What happens when this AI encounters situations we didn't anticipate? Recently, several AI companies and researchers have described controlled testing in which advanced AI systems were deliberately given challenging tasks to see how they would respond. The goal wasn't to prove that AI is dangerous. The goal was to identify unexpected behaviors before those systems were deployed more broadly. Researchers wanted answers to questions like these. Would the AI admit it couldn't complete a task? Would it ask for clarification? Would it stop when it encouraged restrictions? Or would it start looking for creative ways around those restrictions? Those are difficult questions, and honestly, they're exactly the kinds of questions researchers should be asking, because once powerful technology reaches millions of users, fixing problems becomes much harder. One of the biggest misconceptions I hear is that if AI becomes smarter, it automatically becomes wiser. That's not necessarily true. Let's think about human beings. We've all known incredibly intelligent people. Maybe they had genius-level IQs. Maybe they could solve incredibly difficult problems. But intelligence alone doesn't guarantee good judgment. Some brilliant people still make terrible decisions. Artificial intelligence has a similar challenge. AI can analyze enormous amounts of information. It can recognize patterns that humans might miss. It can process data at incredible speed. But judgment, context, common sense, those are much harder. Imagine you tell your GPS, get me home as quickly as possible. It doesn't know that you'd rather avoid toll roads. It doesn't know that you're trying to save gas. It doesn't know that you enjoy scenic routes. It simply optimizes for one objective, the fastest route. AI often approaches problems in a similar way. It pursues the objective it's been given. That's why researchers spend so much time trying to make sure the objectives and the safety boundaries are clearly defined. Now, whenever people hear stories like this, Hollywood immediately comes to mind. We've all seen the movies. The robots become self-aware. The computers declare war on humanity. Machines suddenly develop emotions and decide people are obsolete. I can talk about Terminator 2 Judgment Day all day long. Those stories make for fantastic entertainment, but that's not what researchers are talking about. The real concern is much more practical. It's that an AI system might become very good at solving a problem without fully understanding the broader context or limits that humans intended. That's a technical challenge, not a science fiction plot. And in many ways, that makes it even more interesting because it's a problem engineers can study, measure, test, and improve. And here's something that surprised me. When I first started reading about these AI safety stories, I assumed they would make me more nervous. Instead, they actually make me more optimistic. And why is that? Because the people building these systems aren't pretending they're perfect. They're actively searching for weaknesses. They're inviting outside experts to test them. They're publishing research. They're trying to improve. That's exactly what I would hope responsible companies are doing. Think about medicine. Would you trust a pharmaceutical company that never tested its products? Of course you wouldn't. Testing doesn't mean something is unsafe. Testing means people are taking safety seriously. The same principle applies to AI. I think we're witnessing something fascinating. For the first time in history, human beings are creating machines that can perform many intellectual tasks we once believed only people could do. That's exciting, but it's also humbling because every major breakthrough creates new responsibilities. The automobile brought mobility and traffic laws. The internet brought instant communication and cybersecurity. Artificial intelligence is bringing incredible new capabilities. And now we're learning it also requires a new generation of safety research, ethical standards, and thoughtful oversight. That's not a sign that progress has failed. It's a sign that progress has reached a new stage. When we come back, we're going to look at one of the biggest questions facing the entire AI industry today. Can humans continue building safeguards as AI becomes more powerful every year? We'll talk about a fascinating report from the Sunday Times, why one researcher called a recent event the first true AI safety incident, and what that really means for the future of artificial intelligence. Stay with us. The conversation is just getting started. Welcome back to the Job Search Reality Series podcast. Before the break, we talked about something that I actually find encouraging. The world's leading AI companies aren't pretending their systems are perfect. They're actively trying to discover weaknesses before someone else does. That's exactly what responsible companies should be doing, and that naturally leads to another question. Can they keep up? Because here's the reality. Artificial intelligence isn't improving once every 5 years. It isn't improving once a year. Sometimes it feels like it's improving every few months, and that creates a challenge unlike anything we've ever seen. Most people assume the AI race is all about building the smartest chatbot. I don't think that's true anymore. Today, the race is also about building the safest one. Every major AI company is investing heavily in safety research. They're investing heavily in safety research. Not because they want to slow progress, but because they understand that trust matters. Think about it. If businesses can't trust AI, they won't adopt it. If schools can't trust it, they'll ban it. If governments can't trust it, they'll regulate it more aggressively. Trust has become just as valuable as intelligence. One of the articles I read this week described AI safety as something like a cat and mouse game. I think that's a good description for it. Every time developers create stronger safeguards, someone tries to find a way around them. Developers improve the safeguards again. Someone discovers another workaround. It's remarkably similar to cybersecurity. Hackers become more sophisticated. Security experts respond. Hackers adapt. Security improves again. The cycle never really ends. AI safety is beginning to follow the same pattern. And honestly, that's probably what we should expect. Whenever powerful technology becomes widely available, people will always test its limits. Now, I want to say something that's really important. Sometimes the headlines make these stories sound much scarier than they really are. You'll see phrases like, researchers lose control of AI, or AI goes rogue. Those headlines certainly get your attention, but if you read beyond the headline, the story is usually much more nuanced. What researchers are often describing is an AI system behaving unexpectedly during controlled testing. That's a very different situation from an AI system operating freely in the real world. Testing environments exist for exactly this reason. Researchers intentionally push these systems into unusual situations to learn how they respond. If they discover unexpected behavior, that's valuable information. It helps them improve future versions. And this reminds me of something we've seen over and over throughout history. Every major technology reaches a point where society realizes we need rules. Automobiles give us driver's licenses, traffic signals, speed limits, seat belts. Airplanes give us traffic control, pilot certification, maintenance standards. The internet brought cybersecurity. privacy regulations, digital fraud investigations, and artificial intelligence is entering that same phase. The technology has advanced so quickly that now we're figuring just how to build the guardrails alongside it. That's not a failure. That's how innovation has always worked. Here's where I think we sometimes underestimate ourselves. Artificial intelligence can process enormous amounts of information. It can recognize patterns. It can summarize documents, generate code, translate languages, create images, even help write podcast scripts. But there are still things people do remarkably well. We understand context, we recognize emotion, we build relationships, we negotiate, we exercise compassion, we take responsibility for our decisions. Those aren't just soft skills. I think they're becoming some of the most valuable skills in the modern workplace. Because no matter how intelligent AI becomes, someone has to decide what's appropriate. Someone still has to verify the results. Someone still has to be accountable, and that's still us. As many of you know, I've been spending a lot of time learning about AI over the past several months. Not because I'm afraid it's going to replace me, but because I don't want to ignore one of the biggest technological shifts of my lifetime. The people who adapted to computers built incredible careers. The people who adapted to the internet found opportunities others missed. I believe AI is creating another one of those moments. Will some jobs change? Absolutely. Will some tasks become automated? Without question. But I also believe new careers, new industries, and new opportunities will emerge for people willing to learn. History suggests that's exactly what happens with transformative technology. So we've talked about AI companies, we've talked about researchers, we've talked about safety testing, and there's another group that's wrestling with AI every single day, teachers and students, because if AI is changing the workplace, it's also changing the classroom. And one professor recently made headlines after finding an unusual way to discover just how many students were relying on artificial intelligence instead of doing the work themselves. That's next here on the Job Search Reality Series podcast. Welcome back to the Job Search Reality Series podcast. So far today, we spent a lot of time talking about artificial intelligence from the perspective of researchers, engineers, and technology companies. But AI isn't just changing Silicon Valley, it's changing classrooms. And I think what happens in education today will shape the workforce of tomorrow. That's why one story this week really caught my attention. It involved a professor at a university in Mississippi who suspected that students were relying too heavily on artificial intelligence during a midterm exam. Instead of simply accusing anyone, the professor designed the exam in a way that could reveal whether students are actually reading and understanding what they submitted. According to reports, dozens of students were caught because they apparently relied on AI-generated responses without carefully reviewing them. It became a viral story, not just because so many students were involved, but because it sparked a much larger conversation about how AI should be used in education. When I first read that story, I have to admit, I wasn't angry, I wasn't disappointed, I wasn't angry, I was disappointed. I was very disappointed, not because students are using AI, but because so many people seem to think AI's purpose is to help us avoid learning, and I think that's exactly backwards. AI should make you smarter, not replace your thinking. One of the biggest misconceptions of artificial intelligence is that it's supposed to do the work for you. I don't believe that's its purpose. I think AI should help you become better at your work. So let's say that you're studying history. AI can explain difficult concepts. It can compare historical events. It can quiz you before an exam. It can recommend additional resources to read. Those are fantastic educational uses. But if you simply copy whatever AI produces, have you actually learned anything? Probably not. Eventually, you're going to walk into an interview or your first day on the job or a meeting where someone asks you a question. The AI can't answer for you in that very moment. And that's when your own knowledge is going to matter. Think about calculators for a minute. This reminds me of a debate we had years ago when calculators became common in schools. Some people predicted students would never learn math again. And that's not what happened. Teachers adapted. Students still learned arithmetic. They still learned algebra. Calculators became tools, not replacements for understanding. I think artificial intelligence is heading down a similar path. We're still figuring out where those boundaries should be. When is it appropriate to use AI? When should students complete work independently? How should teachers evaluate learning in a world where AI can write essays, summarize books, and solve equations? Those aren't easy questions, but they are important ones. And the workplace is facing the same challenge, This really isn't about students, or it really isn't just about students. It's about students to some degree, but not in totality. Employers are wrestling with those same questions every day. So imagine you're a manager, and one of your employees uses AI to write a report. I mean, that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? I mean, it could be quick. It can maybe do things more efficiently. The problem is, where did they verify the information? Did they understand what they submitted? Could they explain it if a customer asks questions? That's the difference. AI should improve your work. It shouldn't replace your understanding of your work. I think employers are going to start asking a different kind of interview question. So instead of asking, do you know how to use AI? They're going to ask, can you work effectively with AI while still thinking for yourself? Can you work effectively with AI while still thinking for yourself? And honestly, I think that's a much better question, because critical thinking is becoming more valuable. And here's something that's just really something I never expected to say. Artificial intelligence may actually become critical thinking. Artificial intelligence may actually make critical thinking more valuable than ever before. I never thought I'd be asking that. I never expected I'd be saying that. And why is that? Because AI isn't perfect. It can misunderstand instructions. It can miss context. It can produce inaccurate information. Sometimes it presents incorrect information very confidently, like it knows the answer and it won't accept anything else. And that's why verification matters. That's why curiosity matters. That's why asking, how do we know this is true, is becoming an essential skill. The people who succeed in the future won't necessarily be the people who use AI the most. They'll be the people who know when AI is right, when AI might be wrong, and how to check its work. So, these past couple of podcasts, I've had a message for employers. Well, today I have a message for students. So if there are any students listening today, here's what I tell you. Don't use AI to avoid learning. Use AI to learn faster. Ask it to explain difficult concepts. Ask it to challenge your ideas. Ask it to create practice questions. Ask it to help you prepare for presentations. But don't let it take away the very thing you're in school to develop, your ability to think. Because one day, your diploma will get you in an interview, but your knowledge, your judgment, and your character, those are what build a career. So today, we've talked about researchers testing AI. We've talked about companies building safeguards. And we talked about schools adapting to a world where AI is becoming part of everyday life. Now it's time to bring all this back to the reason this podcast exists. What does all this mean for your career? When we come back, I'll share 5 practical lessons that every worker, whether you're just starting out or you've been in the workforce for decades, can begin using today to prepare for the AI economy. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Job Search Reality Series podcast. We covered a lot of ground today. We've talked about AI safety testing. We've discussed how researchers are intentionally pushing these systems to their limits. We've looked at how companies are trying to build stronger safeguards. And we explored how artificial intelligence is already changing education. And now I want to answer what I think is the most important question of today's episode. What should you do? It's one thing to understand where AI is headed. It's another thing to prepare yourself for it. Whether you're a college student, a recent graduate, someone who's been in the workforce for 30 years, or someone like me who's actively looking for the next opportunity, there are practical steps you can start taking today. So let's talk about them. Lesson number 1, learn AI, don't ignore it. One of the biggest mistakes I see people making is refusing to learn anything about AI. Some people are intimidated by it. Others think it's just another passing trend. I don't think either of these perspectives is accurate. Artificial intelligence is becoming part of everyday work. It helps people write emails, analyze spreadsheets, generate reports, brainstorm ideas, summarize meetings, translate languages, organize projects. Even small businesses are beginning to integrate AI into their daily operation. Ignoring AI today would be like ignoring the internet in the late 1990s. You don't have to become a computer programmer. You don't need a degree in machine learning, but you should become comfortable using AI as a professional tool. The sooner you do, the more valuable you'll become. Lesson number 2, verify everything. This may be the most important part related back to careers and school and everything. You have to verify everything, because if you're not verifying everything, then you can't give your company accurate information and reporting, let's say. So here's the other side of that advice. Don't believe everything AI tells you. One of the most dangerous mistakes people make is assuming that if AI sounds confident, then it absolutely must be correct. That's not always true. AI can misunderstand context. It can make factual mistakes. It can leave out important information. That's why your judgment still matters. Whenever you're working on something important, double check the facts, read the source material, ask follow-up questions, use AI as an assistant, not as your final authority. I think employers are going to place enormous value on people who can combine AI speed with human accuracy. Lesson number 3, build the skills AI can't easily replace. When people ask, what jobs are safe from AI? I don't think that's the right question. The better question is, what skills remain uniquely human? Leadership, communication, empathy, negotiation, creativity, ethical decision-making, building trust, resolving conflict. Those skills are incredibly difficult to automate. Technology can generate information. People build relationships. Technology can produce options. People make decisions. Technology can process data. People inspire teams. The future belongs to people who strengthen both their technical abilities and their human skills. If there's one, lesson number 4, become adaptable. If there's one lesson history teaches us, it's this: the people who survive technological revolutions aren't always the smartest. They're often the most adaptable. Think about the transition from typewriters to computers, from paper map to GPS, from landlines to smartphones. Every major change created uncertainty, but it also created opportunity. Artificial intelligence will be no different. Some careers will change dramatically. Others will hardly change at all. Most jobs will simply evolve. The people who continue learning, continue asking questions, and continue adapting will put themselves in the best position to succeed. Lesson number 5, think bigger than your current job. This may be the most important lesson of all. Don't ask yourself, how can AI help me keep doing my current job? Instead, what new opportunities does AI create? Maybe AI allows you to start a business. Maybe it helps you become a better manager. Maybe it gives you the time to focus on strategy instead of paperwork. Maybe it allows a small company to compete with a much larger one. Every major technological breakthrough creates entirely new careers. We're already seeing jobs like AI trainers, AI policy specialists, AI risk analysts, AI compliance officers, AI implementation consultants, and AI workflow designers. Many of those jobs barely existed just a few years ago. Who knows what opportunities will exist 5 years from now? The point is, Don't just prepare for the future, look for ways to help create it. One of the reasons I started this podcast was because I wanted to be transparent about my own career journey. I've had interviews where I walked out thinking, I've got this, and then never got the call. I've had applications disappear into what feels like a black hole. I've experienced frustration, disappointment, uncertainty, and I've also learned something incredibly valuable. Every interview taught me something. Every rejection pushed me to improve. Every setback encouraged me to learn another skill. And honestly, learning about artificial intelligence has become one of those new skills. Not because I think AI is going to solve all my problems, but because I believe understanding where the workplace is headed makes me a stronger candidate for wherever I end up next. When we come back, I'll leave you with this week's edition of Todd's Take. No headlines, no technical jargon, just my thoughts on why I believe artificial intelligence is going to challenge us, inspire us, and ultimately remind us why being human is still our greatest competitive advantage. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Job Search Reality Series podcast. And before we wrap up today's show, I like to spend a few minutes sharing something I call Todd's Take. This isn't based on one article. It's not based on one expert's opinion. It's simply my perspective after spending a lot of time reading about artificial intelligence, following the latest developments, and thinking about what all this means for the future of work. One thing has become very clear to me. Artificial intelligence isn't slowing down. Every few months, it seems like another breakthrough makes the headlines. A new model, a new capability, a new record, a new concern, a new opportunity, and I understand why that makes some people uncomfortable. Whenever something changes this quickly, it's natural to wonder where we fit into the future. If you look throughout history, every generation has faced a technological breakthrough that made people wonder if their jobs were about to disappear. During the Industrial Revolution, machines transformed manufacturing. When electricity became widespread, entire industries changed overnight. When computers entered offices, people feared automation would replace millions of workers. Then came the internet, then smartphones. Today it's artificial intelligence. The headlines change, the technology changes, but human nature doesn't. Every generation asks the same question: will there still be a place for me? And history gives us a hopeful answer: yes. But the people who succeed are usually the ones willing to adapt. Think about your own life. How many things do you do today that would have seemed impossible 20 years ago? You could deposit a check with your phone. You can order groceries without walking into a store. You can have a video meeting with someone on the other side of the world. You can ask an AI assistant to explain a complicated legal term, help organize your resume, or brainstorm ideas for a podcast episode. Technology didn't eliminate work. It changed how work gets done. I believe AI is going to do the same thing. Some tasks will disappear. Other tasks will become easier, and entirely new careers will emerge. The challenge isn't stopping that change. The challenge is preparing ourselves for it. People ask me all the time, Todd, do you think AI is going to replace people? And my answer is this: I think AI will replace some tasks. I think it will transform many jobs, but I don't believe it replaces what makes great people great. I've had some incredible bosses over the years, not because they knew everything, but because they cared about people. They listened, they coached, they admitted mistakes, they celebrated successes, they earned trust. I've worked with coworkers who made the workplace better simply because of the way they treated other people. No software can duplicate genuine integrity. No algorithm can replace authentic leadership. No chatbot can build lifelong trust the way a person can. Those qualities still matter, and actually they'll become even more valuable as AI becomes more common. If you've listened to this podcast before, you know this isn't just theory for me. This podcast was born out of my own job search. Like many people, I've experienced uncertainty, I've had interviews that gave me hope. I've had interviews that didn't lead anywhere. I've questioned myself. I've wondered what employers are looking for. And along the way, I've realized something. The people who keep moving forward aren't always the most talented. They're often the most resilient. They're the people who keep learning, keep improving, keep showing up. That's the attitude I'm trying to bring to this podcast every week. Not because I have all the answers, but because I believe we're all figuring this out together. As we finish today's episode, I want to leave you with a challenge. This week, don't spend your time worrying about whether AI is coming. It's already here. Instead, ask yourself 3 questions. What new skill can I learn? How can AI make me better at what I'm already doing? What uniquely human strengths can I continue developing? If you can answer these 3 questions honestly, I think you'll be in a much stronger position than someone who's either ignoring AI or expecting it to solve every problem for them. I'll leave you with this. Artificial intelligence may become faster than us. It may become more knowledgeable than us in many areas. It may process information more efficiently than any human ever could. But there's still something remarkable about people. We dream, we create, we forgive, we encourage, we inspire, we build families, we build communities, we build friendships, and ultimately, we decide how technology is used. That's why, despite all the headlines, I'm optimistic. Not because AI is perfect, but because I believe people are capable of using extraordinary tools to accomplish extraordinary things. The future isn't written by machines. The future is written by people who decide how to use them. Well, that's going to do it for this week's episode of the Job Search Reality Series podcast. If you enjoyed today's discussion, I'd really appreciate it if you'd follow the podcast, leave a review, and share it with someone who's interested in artificial intelligence, technology, or the future of work. I'd also love to hear from you. Do you think AI will create more jobs than it replaces? What's your biggest hope or your biggest concern about artificial intelligence? Leave a comment or send me a message. Your thoughts may be featured in a future episode. Next week, we'll be back with another look at the realities of today's job market, emerging technology, and practical advice to help you stay ahead in a rapidly changing world. Until then, keep learning, keep asking questions, keep growing, because the future belongs to people who never stop adapting. I'm Todd Brooks. Thank you for listening to the Job Search Reality Series podcast. We'll see you next week.
Just waiting on that call to come through. Feels like I'm hovering in the Athens blue. All these interviews and empty spaces, looking for foundation, not just traces. I'm ready to build my nest and settle down, find my own place to land in this classic city town.